Welcome to No Dig Gardening Explained, the Change Underground System, a series of mini seminars. So here we are at last in session 5 of 5. I had to put it off yesterday as I explained in the live presentation yesterday. Things are all good this morning. So far we've covered why no dig, heirloom seeds, no bare soils and weeds, pesticides, herbicides, ? And now we're on to the Change Underground System. It's been developed over 30 plus years by myself. It's been tested on sites from 1 square metre all the way up to 22 hectares or 54 acres in the old money, both with stock and without. Now, the Change Underground System is inspired by 3 mentors that I've never actually met and that are all deceased now. So there was John Seymour, who was one of the Back to the Land advocates back in the 60s and 70s, who taught me Masanobu Fukuoka, Japanese ag scientist that developed the system of natural farming, and of course the sainted Bill Mollison, who left us not so long ago. John Seymour showed me it could be done. He lived on a couple of acres in Wexford, amongst other places. And just as I was starting to get an interest in these things, I found his book in the library. And he's got a few other books as well, but the book was The Complete Book of Self-Sufficiency. And finding out that he had passed about 2 months before I got online back in the olden days was like losing a friend. It was really visceral. Masanobu Fukuoka taught me biomimicry, and his favourite catchphrase, "What less can I do?" as in, how much more can I let nature do for me? And of course, Bill Mollison introduced the idea of gardening as a revolutionary act, amongst other things. I have a favourite quote from Bill. I'll just get to it. There we go. "The greatest change we need is to make from consumption to production, even if on a small scale in our own gardens. If only 10% of us do this, there's enough for everyone." And the no-dig garden system, the Change Underground system, is a carbon drawdown system as well, so that's worth bearing in mind, particularly as we all move from consumption to production in this time of COVID-19. So the Change Underground system is based on 4 principles: biomimicry, plants and animals working together, complexity, and observation. So bear with us, we'll go through these. So biomimicry, in that we garden by putting down layers in the same way that the forests and the grasslands and every natural biological system does on land. That way we have no bare soil. With no bare soil, you don't have the ecological conditions set up for weeds to arrive. We use heirloom seeds because the open pollinated ones that I discussed back in episode 2, session 2, sorry, that's the podcast for me coming out. Because there's no intentional hybridizing in nature. You might get some occurring naturally as just a freak event, but nature doesn't go out to hybridize anything. So heirloom seeds are important. That way we can save the seed either in the ground, as nature does, or indoors in little jars or packets. Excuse me. Plants and animals, they're a case of co-evolution. Plants obviously arose first, but then animals arose on the planet, and plants responded to being grazed. Animals responded to the changes in grazing that grazing had induced in the plants, and both evolved hand in hand. So it's important to have the two together. There's an interdependence between them. And of course, there's the third kingdom, the fungi. Now, we're learning more and more about this particular kingdom. They're the plant or animal, but they're a link between the plants in the ground, and they live mostly underground, obviously. The mushrooms that people eat are just the fruits of those particular life forms. I went to say plants, but they're not. So getting my head around the third kingdom's a bit tricky. But they do more than just give mushrooms. They connect trees to trees, other plants to other plants. They act as a buffering system and a store for nutrients in times of excess and return them in times of dearth. It's like a buffer, basically, a redundancy within the system, so that there's always stuff there, provided we make sure the soil's in a condition where they can grow. And complexity. This is a difficult one to get our head around. I discussed it, I can't remember, one of the earlier sessions. But biological systems, the more complex they are, the more stable they are, again with those built-in redundancies. So when we're gardening, we have complexity by species. So tomato, pumpkin, silver beet and peas, for example, they're all different. But also within species, so by cultivar. So look at these names, it's Amish, banana, Black Russian and Indian River. It turns out they're all tomatoes. You might not be able to get 4 or 5 different varieties of tomatoes into your gardens, but if you can get 2 and keep them a distance apart within your system, you've got that extra complexity of the different cultivars, even though they're the same species. And you've got that built-in safety net if one fails. Okay, we also need to think about complexity by usage. So are we growing things to be bottled, to be used fresh, to be dried, or any of the other storage devices, salted another way? And the other usage that we can think about is organic matter after the growing season. Are we picking, are we picking cultivars that will give us large amounts of organic matter to leave either in the compost or on top of the garden after the growing season's finished? Now, observation. This is one of the key ones. So we have to observe growth rates in different cultivars, the influx of pests, and I did originally have that down as predators in my mind, but predictors is not, excuse me, is actually pretty good word to use there, a positive Freudian slip. So the predictors are, you can see some pests arrive and they should predict the arrival, terrible burps, influx of pests, and they should predict the influx of prey. So that's why you observe before you overreact and start spraying things. It does make a difference. And observations of ripeness, which fruit or cultivars are we going to select the seeds from? So you might want early ones more often because your growing seasons are shortening, or you might want the ones that did best through the dry spell. And it's all a matter of observation. And of course, the difficult one, and the one I find most fun, is weather patterns. And we get a good sort of week, 2 weeks in advance nowadays. But even then, weather patterns and events can occur out of the blue. So we need to keep our eye on the weather as the climate changes around us. So what does the change underground look like on the ground? Well, first we plan, then we construct the beds, then we plant, and then we observe. So we'll move on a bit. So planning. This is a plan for a 1 square metre, it's about 10 square foot, herb garden. So we've got rosemary and sage and thyme. They're perennials. And the rest, tarragon is too if you don't get any frosts. And the rest are annuals. Now you might not want any of all of these, so you can just adjust around, and maybe you've got a different herb that'll fit in there. But the idea you can see is there's lots of variation, and you'll have to do some trimming as the rosemary gets higher and the sage starts to spread out, especially with the thyme too. It's a low ground cover. But that will, from a square metre, you can get an awful lot of herbs, which should keep you going for the year without too much trouble. And you could grow that on a balcony if you really needed to. So this is a variation on that, but this is down into 10 centimetre squares. That's about 4 by 4 inches in the old money. And this is a plan for vegetables. You'll notice that most of them are leafy greens. So the rocket, which I think is called arugula in the North America, bok choy, purple basil, cos, mizuna, silver beet, spinach and chicory are all leafy vegetables. Bush beans will give you some protein, and that goes along in the southern hemisphere, the southern border, and you just flip the whole picture around if you're in the northern hemisphere. Now, you don't like bush beans, maybe peas or broad beans, but I like the idea of a legume at the back there. And now the radish will go in and come out fairly quickly, and then you could add another one of these in there, or you could pick a different species altogether. But again, you can see there's an awful lot of food will come out of that small area. And with the lettuce and all of the apart from the bok choy, even the bok choy, you could just keep picking the outside leaves, and the plant will keep growing, and so you'll stay in production. It's not like you're producing iceberg lettuce heads for a supermarket, and so you've got to rip the whole plant out. This way, with everything planted so closely together, of course, you're also going to not give space for weeds to arise because the soil will be well and truly covered. Now, this is a larger version of that. This is the ones I've been using at work on a 4.5 square metre or 50 square foot bed. There, we use a 3 metre long board and a 1.5 metre there. So we have 3 boards, cut one in half, drill it in. So because they're 100 mil wide, that leads us to 29 units down here, 2.9 metres, because the board goes along the inside. And you can see there's a variety of food plants in there. The rocket and the cress especially comes up first, and the rocket, then the kale. The peas are fairly quick. Sunflowers are surprisingly so, and the marigolds fairly quick too, but the rest take time over the summer, and you can thin the carrots as they grow and pick again the outside of the lettuces if you need to, or you can occasionally remove a whole lettuce if that's how much you need, just to give a bit more space in the bed. Tomatoes, I'd be picking determinate types, that is the ones that grow in a bush, because this year I could only get hold of indeterminate, and they sort of take off as a vine and intermingle with the pumpkins and the squash and the zucchini, and harvesting carrots through tomato vines is a bit iffy, but that's what you learn by observation. So here it is on a bigger scale if you're having trouble seeing it. Oops, back we go. But it's the same. The mini cabbages just did not do well, so that'll be something to adjust for next summer. But you're quite happy to screenshot that and use it, and just adjust it as you need it for yourselves. So, and this is what it looks like on the ground. So you've got your broad beans coming up, a couple of things there. What were they? Lettuce, yep. And you've got your cress in the background there, and the rocket arugula doing okay. And it grows fairly spectacularly, fairly quickly. The sunflowers are just magnificent when they get going. And you can see it very quickly fills in all the space. If we'd had any spare pea straw, I'd have put that out as well. But what we're growing in there is spent mushroom compost on a cardboard base inside a wooden frame. And you see a little frame up the back there for the peas, which was more in hope than anything else. But we got quite a good pea harvest off there. And here it is from another angle. You can see the peas growing up. The marigolds are starting to blossom. We've got a zucchini flower in there, and the sunflowers were dwarf sunflowers because we get a lot of wind in this part of the world, and anything too high and stalky gets blown over. So, do you want to grow? That's the question. Do you want to grow food? Do you want to grow your understanding of do you want to grow yourself? All these things are what you get out of a good garden. And do you want to start now? Well, a lot of us are going to be self-isolating, or already are. The cress is up in about 4 to 6 days, depending on where you are and the weather conditions. And the rocket takes about a week and a half, 2 weeks before you can start picking leaves. So it's possible in that 2-week self-isolation to get things started. Also, if you're ready to change your diet, maybe you decided with this worldwide pandemic that maybe eating a lot of processed foods isn't good for us. And if we got back to some healthier eating, lots of leafy greens, lots of homegrown stuff, but you weren't sure how to start. And of course, as I said earlier, these beds suck carbon out of the air by covering the soil and keeping it safe. It's a small part of the climate change solution, but if you imagine millions of people growing this way and not purchasing stuff from the shops with all the embedded carbon that comes from the fruit and veg section, with food being trucked across countries vast distances, you take all that carbon dioxide out of the food. Okay, and then you ask yourself, how do I start? Well, if you go to worldorganicnews.com/TCU1, TCU1 stands for The Change Underground, page 1. Have a look there, it'll explain it all to you. Have a read and realise that The Change Underground, we're setting up a membership of concerned growers that can get together across the world, interact with each other and help each other, all based on the ideas that we've been running through in the last 4 sessions and this one as well. So, and the membership's for brand new growers, obviously. I'm happy to help anyone. I've been not formally or educationally, academically, but in reality, I've been a teacher for years. People that are looking to go no dig as well, that are coming over from the traditional double dig systems, who've realised that they're actually killing off myceliae and the fungi as they do that, for the very great joy of being able to dig again the next year. And that's the wonderful thing about the Change Underground system and no dig gardens in general, is that you never ever have to dig again. And as we discussed in the session on weeds, by not digging and by layering and biomimicry, we're actually reducing huge numbers of weeds down to very few, and they're very easy to deal with. And we're going to form a community that actually makes a difference both to ourselves, our families, our neighbours and the world. So as I say, it's a membership, and to get you started, we're offering a 7-day trial for $1, and then it's $28 a month or $197 a year, which is a huge saving of over 40%. My thinking was that the growing year goes for, well, a year, so you might as well be in it for the year, and I'm quite happy to give the discount for people to come along. And every month there'll be a new module out, which involves a video, the equivalent of a blog post, and of course a cheat sheet. And once a month we'll do a Ask Me Anything, possibly in the Facebook group or on a Zoom call, I'm not sure yet, whichever works best for people. And of course we have a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions. And you don't need the aggro. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. There's no point arguing about it. Have your cash back, on your way, have fun. So I'd love to see you in the members only area. Don't forget worldorganicnews.com/TCU1. There's also a tab in the top right-hand side of the website, or in the drop-down menu if you're on your phone. So come and change your world. I'd love to walk beside you as you do it. And that concludes the 5 sessions, really. If you've got any questions, quite happy to take those. DM me through the Facebook page or through my private public page under the name John Moore. It's easier to come through the World Organic News page on Facebook or through the website. There's a contact sheet there. Thanks for listening. I've enjoyed my time doing this. It's been a bit of a hoot and helped to clarify my thinking as well, and I hope it helped a lot of other people. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back on the podcasts as usual. If you need to stay in touch, and you can email me at media@World Organic News. Thanks for listening.